Okay, so we're going to make tracks here, and fortunately this gang can track things rapidly. Thank you so much for coming. You honor me, and the reason you honor me is that I've never spoken before such a group of people for whom I have such respect. So this is a privilege for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of navigate this system, and that is I'm going to tell you some things about the context. You can't understand anything outside of context, which is so great about our sermons, because we get the context of what the scripture is about. Then we hear the scripture, so you have a chance of understanding what's going on. So a little bit about that and the night sky questions, and some of this to who am I, why am I here, why am I here, and what does it mean to have lived a life worthwhile is where we're going. So then our own George Stickle, philosophy professor at Kennesaw State University, in Rebekah's Theological discussion group Tuesday mornings, I asked him to help me organize my understanding of philosophers. I thought there were 20 or 30 great philosophers. Turns out there are about 400 or 500, okay? And he said to me, I value the fog and vagueness, meaning my fog and vagueness about these philosophers, who they were, what they actually said, because it means that a dimness of an outline is appearing. You have an idea of what they said. You have an idea, an organization. The dimness of an outline appearing is happening amid the various essences of our experience. So this is happening while you're living in the world. And he said that the essences that allow ideas of that outline to become associated with or modified by with the variations found within our own experience, and something like truth emerges. Meaning you have an idea about something, you have life experiences, and to the extent those experiences corroborate your ideas, that outline you have in your head is corroborated. And to the extent that they refute what you understand, you have to revise your outline. So I love that definition. And if you're going to do this right, you're going to know something about this: love, power, and justice. Does love have something to do with power? What? Yes, it does. What about power and justice? Is there a relationship? Yes, there is. And so this is another thing we studied in the Theological discussion group. And this has to do with Paul Tillich's work on this subject, the ontology of these words. And ontology is kind of an abstruse word, but it's becoming not abstruse, because it's very important for artificial intelligence, AI. In this day and age, you have to specify whose AI you're using. Is it Microsoft? Is it Amazon? Is it Google's AI? Whose AI is it? Because they put the world's information and they pick it to put into their AI. And then the AI computers have to know all the grammar. And one of the ways you tell the difference between a student's original work as a college professor and an AI-generated essay, you can ask to say, I need 10 pages on this subject, and so the computers AI doesn't make grammatical mistakes. Students and human beings do. That's one way you tell the difference between an AI-generated work and a human-generated work. And the ontology has to do with the relationship of these words to each other. And it isn't just like a piece of silk, real thin. This work is related to this. It's a thick texture, like a big 2-inch slab of leather with all these words intersecting. And the AI has to know this to make your essay meaningful. So we study that. And here, from my nephew, John J. Corson, who lives in Colorado, at 1 o'clock in the morning in Wyoming, what is this structure? Anybody know?
It's a devil's tower.
Yes. And that terminology is a cartography mistake. It's actually Bear Lodge. And this is sacred ground for the Northern Plains Indians. And so up here in the night sky without air pollution, we can't turn these lights out. It's just the way it is. And there's no time to unscrew the bulbs. So what is this thing? What is it? What is that thing? Come on. Any ideas?
Milky Way.
Yes, it's the Milky Way, which is our galaxy, correct. And it's seen end on, like a Frisbee. You're seeing the edge of it. In a NASA reconstruction, this is what it looks like en face, the top of the Frisbee or the bottom. It's a typical spiral galaxy. And I'll come back to this at the end. This was completed during the training recently, Stephen Ministry training. And this has to do, this is the Deep Space Webb Telescope. And an attribution is made down here that that's what the background is. You have to do that. And these spots and dots are not stars. This is a star, I think that's a star, which are close by. These are all galaxies. And there are trillions of galaxies. And each galaxy has billions of stars. Billions. And all of them, most of them have planets going around. And 40% of them have planets in the temperate zone, not too close to the star to get fried like Mercury and Venus in our system, not too cold to get frozen like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, Saturn, blah, 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 but in the temperate zone. And all you need for life is 5 elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus, and an energy source, the sun, to have carbon-based life. So the contention that there's no life elsewhere in the universe is absurd, statistically absurd, not correct. So these are the galaxies that we're surrounded with. This is the thin surface of life on our planet. And of course, the universe is below our planet, right? As well as above it, to the right, to the left. Okay, so then just look at this quickly here. The universe is 26.7 billion years old. Billion. Our planet's 4 billion years old. Billion. The oldest skull is 75,000 years. And history is defined as at the advent of language. And the Sumerians in the Fertile Crescent, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, that's where Sumerian writing began. And before that is prehistory. We have bones to look at, but no writing. So look at this, 3,000, the Vedic teachings are here. I thought Pythagoras was all about geometry. No, he was a spiritual person. So here are these people in this time going down to the Greek philosophers who were talking about, well, forms, love, all these things, hope, that you can't see, but they're the most important things in the world. So then we come to Jesus the Christ, year 0, and the Muslim faith 6 centuries later, just to kind of review. All right, so now we're going to go to the wilderness here. And the wilderness is a neat place because there's no noise in the wilderness. There's sound, with rushing water, waterfalls, birds screeching, a female lion in heat in the fall screaming, or a male lion growling that you can hear 5 miles away in still air. So here's Half Dome. And here's it closer. And here's climbing Half Dome. This is about a 70-degree slope, which is almost straight up. And here's where I learned that I have a physical limit. I could play offense and defense in football and still walk off the field. Here you walk for 20 minutes and you have to stop. Your heart's beating so fast, you have to stop for 5 minutes. Your heart rate has to calm down. And that's how you get up. And here's another wilderness, different kinds of retreats. In this particular one, you had to walk away from the camp for half a day yourself, pitch some sort of living arrangement. I put this ground sheet over this giant rock and gathered together some wood because I wasn't wild about the coyotes barking and howling around me. Of course, they wouldn't have come near me. I know that now. And lit a fire. And then you have to walk back and get back before 12 noon. And you had to find your way back. You had to do an Indian trick of looking, where'd you come from? This is what's going to look like on the way back. And another 200 yards, and then look back. Okay, it's between this rock and that rock to get back to do a sweat lodge. And how many people have been in a sweat lodge? Okay, what it is, it's a Native American thing where you have branches bent, and we're in the spiritual domain. I haven't lost track of what we're talking about here. The bending branches over and throwing animal hides and blankets so there's no light in here. And inside there's a pit about 1 foot deep and 3 feet wide. And you put these rocks, granite rocks that are glowing, that heated in a fire all day long. The last time they were glowing was in the Pleistocene somewhere. So you have a 7-rock sweat or a 14-rock sweat, and then you sit around the periphery of this, and the person who is running the sweat won't let you out. If you're dealing with a psychological issue that the people demand that you deal with, or the tribe needs resolved, you cannot leave. If you're fainting or passing out, they'll let you out. So they put on here the 4 sacred herbs, and then put water, which makes steam, and it gets really hot in there. And there isn't a single photon. It is absolutely pitch black and hot. And immediately you're drenched in sweat. So you're in there for 1, 2, or 3 hours. And it's a physical purification, and it's an inner purification. So there was that we had to come back to. And then a vision quest. These are tobacco prayer ties. The sun comes up in the east, sets in the west. This is the north, this is the south. So you have 50 of these. You're tying them on these, saying prayers and tying tobacco prayer ties. And then you get ready for the sweat. Then you do the sweat. And then you come out on a prayer blanket with these 50 ties on each side. And you hang a waluta here, sacred tobacco, and then an abalone shell, which is like a satellite antenna. You're connecting with the universe, hawk feather. And here is a spider. I woke in the morning and I found these 2 spider webs parallel. They sort of 3 inches apart, perfect, and perfect in their singularity and perfect where they overlapped. And Bonnie and I just got married, so I thought this was really good for me. That was kind of the message I took from this. So then, if you're going to a place like this in Canada, 750 kilometers from civilization in any direction, you have to take a vehicle like this. And then, this is a gravel bank. These are flat, dry gravel stones, which we'll come back to, because a drip fell on a rock one time, and it made a splash that looked like this. And I said, wait a minute, no splash looks like that. You can have a splash like that. And there was a double rainbow in the sky, all the colors, not just fading in the double, 2 rainbows, and this splash. I said, okay. So I drew this thing on my fishing license and painted this picture and put 2 of them. And this guy in his 40s really wanted this painting. So I was pleased to accept $15 from him. It's been a journey, okay? So then you can go this way with pack horses and pack mules. And the wilderness doesn't give you any grades. It doesn't lecture you or scold you. If you don't go with rain gear, you get wet. If you don't get with enough warmth, you get cold. And if you think getting into a wet bathing suit is hard, getting into a wet sleeping bag is a lot harder. So then you go on the trail. The horses know to pay attention, even if attention is not being paid here. And so here is Russell. You keep your fingers down. Russ is getting a lot of attention. We don't want the fingers crunched off. And here is Matthew, my other son, in his element. And so then this is Long's Peak in Estes Park, Colorado. It's a 14,000-foot mountain. And here is this ledge, the Keyhole Trail. This is about 5-6 feet wide, so you hug the wall. And this is about 4,000-foot drop, so you have to pay attention. And at the end, here's this 45. It looked more than that, but it's a 45-degree slope. And you have to get off the mountain before noon, because that's when the lightning starts to strike and people check out that way. So then another trip, I made friends with a great blue heron. I went fishing. I was upset about something, and I went fishing on a guide, and the great blue came down, landed, and fished 30 feet from me. And the heron and myself didn't catch anything. So the heron shoved off, and we shoved off downstream. And so the heron landed again 30 feet away. And a second time, neither one of us caught fish. And the heron flew down some more. We went down, and the heron landed 30 feet away from me. We fished, didn't catch anything. And then the heron disappeared. So there I was with the dead leaves of the fall floating down the stream, the dead salmon who had spawned floating down the stream, and then the business about the heron. So the heron became a friend of mine, a spiritual animal. These are heron feathers, and it has to do with shamanism, which I'll come to. This is about the death of my father, who died of pancreatic cancer. I won't go into that. And then here's some pictures of some research. This is a squid oligopelia, and it swims this way, and it has a giant nerve fiber going through the muscle. This is the muscle that you eat, the squid. The people in Japan like to do that. And it's easier to study a giant nerve fiber than a teeny tiny microscopic nerve fiber in a human body or a mammalian body. So here's this little cartoon. Your feet can hurt or you can have a headache when you're a cephalopod. That's about it. It'd be nice if life was that simple. So then here's a nerves and tissue culture, and here's a cultured neuron, differently depicted. And then this is my laboratory, and here is my teacher, Bob Allen. So he was my professor, then became my friend, and then I became his doctor when he was dying of pancreatic cancer, like our Joe Brown here. Not a fun way to check out. So he came to the Cleveland Clinic where I was working, and then at the end of his workup, we couldn't do anything for him. I think he came to say goodbye to me. I think he knew that. And I put him on the airplane. I walked through the airport. He was chewing morphine pills. And I put him on the airplane, spoke with the flight attendant, and said, now look, this is my professor. He was in first class because he was 6'5" and down to 200 pounds by that time. He's dying of pancreatic cancer. So if he falls over and crumps during the flight, you're not to divert the plane. You're not to do CPR. He knows about this. It's all above board. He's going home to die. So she got the message. She was very heads up. And Bob heard me say that. And then I put my hand on Bob's shoulder. I said, Bob, I have to get off the plane now. I have to go. I love you. And he said, I feel the same way. So I shoved off. And then we're continuing the search and the journey. Here is the Christ. And here's the puzzle of the chalice, putting all this stuff together. And this is letting go of Wesley, a patient of mine, 9 years old. He had headaches and vomiting for 2 weeks, not a good symptom complex for a boy. And he was an artist, so we would draw together in his room just for a few minutes. So sure enough, he had a medulloblastoma in the back of his head. It was partially resected. I think we did the radiation therapy, not amenable to chemo, and then he passed. And I made this for his mother and father. So here is Wesley, and here is this hand opening up and letting go of Wesley. And this is the universe that we just saw. These are nebulas, gas in the universe that reflects all these light. A lake and this kind of island with this kind of prison's bars effect. And he's get let out of prison. So then for 5 years I studied Kabbalah, and there is a tarot deck. And the tarot deck, the glyph, this is the tree of life, this glyph. And it's kind of like a necklace of Gendrasic beads that the Hindus have, or rosary beads that Catholics have. And you work your way up this to get to Christ, to get to God in your spiritual growth. And I made my own tarot cards. Tarot cards are a way of remembering how to get up this glyph, how to get what you do first. So first you have to grind up all your untruth, the things you think are true but aren't. You have to grind them up. So that's this path on the glyph. And then you have to wake up, or sleeping, you have to wake up. I put these images here because then I could remember what the path was for. And then you have to deal with, go straight up to the Shiva dancing here, which has to do with life, and we'll come back to that. And then you have to burn your toxic emotions. And then there are other cards to get you to Tippereth, Christ. And here's his heart, and here's the brain, a tug-of-war between these two, and some more cards. So that was and then this has to do with the journey. These are all, many of them paintings, of course. This is a boat, and this is a boat under construction. We all have this, we're constructing our boat, and here are the geese flying from left to right, the way we read in our language. The arrow of time, which doesn't exist. Time is not a real thing in the universe. We have clock time that is talked about and is useful because the 12 noon, you know when that is. Dawn is here, dusk is here, but what if you want to have a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? When are you going to meet? Or 3:30 or 2, you need a sundial, and then you need a clock chimes in the village, then you need a clock, then you need a watch. So here then is this crack in the earth, so-called crack in the earth, and new energy is released. And this has to do with shamanism. Took some courses in shamanism about soul retrieval. So this is kind of a meditative technique where you find a crack in the earth or a cave and you walk into it and then find a tunnel and then go down the tunnel and then you fall down the tunnel into a hidden valley below. This is all you're in your mind, of course. And then you come flying out of this cave, and then you have your spiritual creatures. And I have a great blue heron and a female lion who gathers all the food for the bride, not the males, and a coyote who is very clever and a source of humor to fly with me as I go exploring various things down there, and then you come out of it. So this is this painting about that subject. Here's the importance of family. Here's a grandfather and a grandmother, a hint of royalty, and here's the daughter and this little tiny granddaughter here, you can hardly see, the same boat, the same geese. And here's things that matter, meaning the communion, bread, wine, the chalice. And these are images from the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, Switzerland, between Switzerland and France. It's about 100 meters deep, and they collide protons together, positively hydrogen ions, and when they smash, they happen to smash. They don't all smash, just every once in a while, one in a million smashes. But products of that collision go out into the earth, and they're waiting with different kinds of receivers to see what the subatomic particles look like. So this has to do with the things that matter to me. And this is my body, which is broken for you. And of course, things just don't look like this. They look more like this. Because right now, sitting in this room, we're moving 1,000 miles an hour right now around our Earth as it rotates. And our Earth is 24,000 miles around. So at 1,000 miles every hour, it takes a day, we call it, to get around once. And at the same time, in a different direction, we're rotating around our star, we call the sun, at 10,000 miles an hour. And at the same time, in a different direction, we're rotating around the arms of our galaxy, the Milky Way, at 550,000 miles an hour. We're moving the vector sum of all of those speeds and distance. A vector is a speed and a direction. 100 miles an hour is just a speed. 100 miles an hour east, that's a direction, is a vector. So there's a way of summarizing it using vector mathematics. And then on top of that, the whole universe is expanding. It's like white dots on a black balloon. As the balloon expands, all the white dots on this side, as the rubber stretches, are moving apart from each other, right? And all the dots on this side of the balloon are moving apart from these because the balloon is expanding and it's accelerating. That's going on at the same time. So what does that look like? Not just this, or not just like this room, it's more like this. And then here, the image has to do with hope. This is Hatteras Hope, Lighthouse Hatteras. There's 7 functioning lighthouses off the North Carolina coast. What are we doing for time here? It's what? 9:33. Okay, well then I'm just going to step it up here. Too much explanation. I did fighter pilot training for a day, and this is the resurrected Christ. After this is a Princeton classmate of mine landing on a carry off the Vietnamese coast, and another one flying an S-2A recon plane landing on a carrier, and this is my F-15, and without ordnance under his wings. And this is the Bhagavad Gita. Now we're sort of getting into Hinduism. And the Bhagavad Gita is the part of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is a Hindu epic. There's no Bible in Hindu. There's no founding person who founded it. It goes back 3,000 years, and these things have emerged from the distant past. So the Mahabharata is the story of King Bharat, Mahabharata. And it is told by a clairvoyant who can see what's going on in a battle thousands of miles away to the blind king, Dehystrata. He's blind. So the clairvoyant is talking to the blind king, telling him about this battle. It's the last 1% of the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita. And it's the story of the 5 Pandava brothers. They're warriors. Interpret that as 5% of the people. Fighting 95%, the herd mentality, the Dehystrata brothers. And all that fighting is going on in yourself. This is all a metaphor. And so Arjuna, or Arjun to his friend, is riding up and down between these 2 battle lines, 200 yards apart. He's in the middle. And he says to the charioteer, stop. I'm getting off. I'm not going to do this. Because I can see in the people across that I'm going to be fighting some of my family. It's all metaphorical. Some of my teachers. And I'm not going to kill them. But I'm going to have to kill them, so I'm not going to do it. And his charioteer turns out to be the god Shiva. And Shiva says to Arjun, you have to fight this fight. You cannot not fight this fight. You're part of the 5%, the sentients, the thinking people, and the herd mentality. Lots of herd mentality. We're all around us. So he does do that. This is his magic bow. Here is a wheel, and here are 3 of these horses. There's another horse in here that's kind of lost. That's the chariot that they're off having this conversation. This is his magic bow, and this is us. And then the journey continues, and you grow. This has to do with also the journey of the recovery. This is Nietzsche, thus spake Zarathustra with a camel to take you over your desert places, the lion for strength. And the child is naive, is not crystallized, isn't rigid about his understanding. The child is building his own truth. And so then we come to India, and we're talking here about in Nepal, which is the Himalayan range, with all this ice and snow, the origin of 11 of the world's greatest rivers, the Brahmaputra, the Yellow, the Yangtze, the Mekong, or Mekong Delta fame, the Ganges, the Ganga. Varanasi is over here, and Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha has enlightenment, is over there. So here's our friend, the Everest, and here is the South Col, and you walk here like this. In the summertime, this is all hollow. You can't climb it because there's no ice and snow to walk on. So here is a visitation to this 19,000-foot place. I was sort of disappointed not to see snow and ice and Tibetan prayer flags here. But of course, there is no snow and ice, so there's no Tibetan prayer flags. And it's freezing there. I mean, it's cold. I get cold. So the wind is blowing. And then this helicopter that has 200 revolutions per minute. It's a jet engines burning jet fuel, not a gasoline engine with 80 revolutions per minute. You need this to fly at this altitude. It's making this, and they didn't dare turn it off up there because they might not start it again. So it was hardly spiritual, but it was there. And here, it was more scary and cold. So here we're back in India, out of Nepal, back in India at Varanasi. And the Indian people are wonderful people. They're very gentle. Many of them are childlike. Here they're taking a selfie with a sandal. Here these wonderful dogs lined up, and their owners got them very well trained. They're in this line for a snack. And so here is the Ganges. Here is Varanasi. And the Ganges is a mile wide at that point, 5 miles at the mouth. And here are these steps, the Ghats, G-H-A-T-S. And the Ghats go all for miles, and there are different parts of the Ghats that are used for different purposes. Here are these Ghats, people are bathing. These are bathing Ghats. And here is the wood for the cremations. These boats are bringing wood. And here at night are 8, I've counted, of cremations that are going. And cremation is kind of a neat thing. And their belief in incarnation, I believe in it now, because you can't get it right the first go around. You just can't get it right. So if you have some more incarnations to get it right, you learn some more stuff, and then you have another incarnation and you learn some more stuff. And so that's what they believe. So then there's a way of staying lost. I have this as a handout in the back if you want. And here's what does it grow toward finding and being yourself. And they make a big point. Where are we now, Bonnie, time-wise? 9 what? 39. Okay, and the service starts at 10, right? Okay, we're okay. Is that there's a huge amount of confusion about who you are and what you are. And you're not a man or a father or a brother or a uncle or a nephew or a doctor, an artist, a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. You're not a woman or a mother or a daughter or a niece or any profession. You're not an attorney. Those are roles you play, but they're not who you are. Who you are is a spiritual entity that occupies this puppet. That's what I've come to understand from these various exercises, experiences. And I've seen about 3,000 dead people. And when you see somebody resuscitating them, talking, the shocked, guilty, weeping families, that sort of thing, is that when someone, their spirit has left them, the thing that animated the puppet is gone, and the person doesn't look like the person. They say, well, yeah, that looks sort of like so-and-so, but the thing that made them them is not there, is somewhere else. And so when you're a teenager, you're insecure and you want to look like other people, wear their clothes, wear their shoes, wear their socks, their jewelry, whatever. You want to do that to be included, to feel secure. And you hang on to that in adulthood, but you have to realize that that's not who you are because you have a false identification. Someone makes a derogatory remark about doctors, and you identify as a doctor. You're offended by that. You have an emotional reaction to that. Or you identify as a man or a woman. Some says derogatory about men's behavior or women. You take a personal insult. Or a political party. If you identify with that, you're insulted by someone because you identify as that. If you know that it's not who you are, that you're a spiritual person, you're not offended by these comments. You say, oh, okay, but you're not emotionally reactive to that kind of thing. So, and here this is even deeper. This is a mantra in the Hindu faith. Death or fear I have none, nor any distinction of caste. I don't belong to a caste. Neither father nor mother, nor even a birth have I. Neither friend nor comrade, neither disciple nor guru. I am eternal bliss and awareness. I am Brahm, I am Brahm. So when you say that several times a day, and it goes about 8 different verses, you are really not identifying as any of these things. You're identifying as a spirit. So then comes this bit about painting on a moving background. So here's the background moving, and it's kind of challenging. And then there is washing this paint off, and this is Bonnie Block here, who suggested that we do this. This is Markhan. It's a Hindi word for smile. That's her name. She's very good, and this is her Mahout. And then there is Markhan washing herself. So we're standing there, we were soaking wet, of course, and she does this incredible job of washing herself. It's just unbelievable. So that was fun to do, and you just learn all this stuff. And then after that, you go for a walk, and here is this elephant, and the elephant probably said, look, I'm not going to walk with this. He paints on me and washes it off. He's nuts. I'm not going to walk with him. Well, I wanted to walk with her and not get stepped on or killed. And her Mahout, when Markhan would walk away from me, he would talk to her in Hindi and get her to walk with me. So these are the elephants, and elephants are important because they have mud on their back to protect them from the sun and the flies. And when you're meditating, there's a difference between thoughts and thinking. Thoughts are like flies on the back of an elephant. You just let them fly off and you just keep walking with your meditation. Thinking is engaging the thoughts and putting together and reasoning something out. You're thinking. So you don't want to have any thinking when you're meditating. So this is the Shiva. There's the creator god, Vishnu, the sustainer of art, and Shiva, it's the god of destruction and death. And you say, wow, that's really weird. What a religion. She's got 4 arms and 2 legs. And it's not weird at all. We have a triune God. I don't have any problem with that. God the creator, God the Son, and the teacher, and the sacrificial lamb who was crucified, okay? Then God the Spirit. I don't have any problem with that. We all have many aspects of our lives, many. And so here is this creature. It's a mnemonic for the Hindu people to remember that she's got different things in her hands that are ways of remembering what this God is for. You have to have, before you can have green shoots, the old plants have to die, the ones that branch. And you have an institution that's crystallized, rigid about something, insecure, that has to pass away before a new institution or a new thinking can ensue. So this is the dance of Shiva. And then we come to Buddha, the Buddha, with his long earlobes. He was a man, not a god, said so. And he was in northern India, and he didn't like the caste system or a whole bunch of things. His father was a king, and he lived in this palace of hundreds of acres. And the father instructed his teachers not to tell him about death and dying and sickness. So one day he went with some of his friends galloping outside the palace and saw 3 things he'd never seen. He saw a sick man, a dying man, and a dead man. And he said, wait a second, what is this? What is this? What do you mean sickness, dying? What? And then he went back to the palace, said to his father, said, look, I have to find out about this. You've been holding back on me. So he had a wife in her 20s and a 5-year-old son, and he left and went to study all this stuff. And so now there's all this following. It looks like a Princeton reunion, orange and black. Hundreds of thousands of Buddhists and nuns, Buddhist nuns also wearing the same kind of outfit. And the birds around there are just millions of birds all chirping. They're just, the cacophony of the birds singing is just amazing with the spiritual energy that's going on here. And so then, this is the Bodhi tree, a version of it, of the tree that he got his enlightenment. He was starving himself. And the Buddhist thing, this is a stupa. This is his sort of colony north of Varanasi, where the Buddhist monks came to live here. And what transformed him? There's translation, which is fixing your personal problems, whatever they are. And then there's transformation, which is much more profound than personal problems. It's really making you a different person. So he was transformed by understanding that in life there's suffering, and the cause of suffering is desire. So if you don't desire anything, you don't suffer. To end desire, follow the Eightfold Path. And these are the 8 things you have to do and study: right view, right intention, speech, right action. And so now we're sort of finishing up here. Bonnie, what time is it now? 9:47. Okay. All right. So real quick, here is this painting, and I can't spread this thing apart, but here's the symbol of Om, the Christian cross. The Pleiades, where we're supposed to come from. And this is Greek. I am in my Father, and he is in me, and I in you. And this is the Shema prayer of the Jewish faith. This is the Hindu saying from Shiva talking to Arjun, saying, the unreal never is, the real, meaning God, truth, never is not. And this is a Tibetan Buddhist saying, this is the Muslim faith, Allah knows best, and this is Taoism, and it says, all things all things under the earth are born of the corporeal. Everything has a beginning. And the corporeal itself is born of the incorporeal, the spiritual. And so here is us watching this whole thing. And then finally, this is in the home of God. And I married a couple, and they went to an Easter Sunday service in Florida, and the sun came up over this cloud bank. And as it peeked over the cloud bank, he took this picture of this reflection in the water, which gave me the idea to paint this. So here is the incipient Christ, the not manifest on land yet, and here's the Christ consciousness. Here's the Christ doing his work for 3 years, and here he is executed, and here he is resurrected by God the Father. And then in John 15:5, the Christ says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And that's us. So then that's it. And I think there are some papers in the back of the room if you want to take them with you. Some are stapled together. There's 3 pages. The last thing I'll say, if someone says, what do you believe? I would just point to this and I would say, that. Tatvan asi. You are that. That summarizes where we are in our universe with the 26 billion years. If you regard that as a day, this is the last seconds of that day. That's where we are located in time and space. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate that.